575 ballots have already been cast since the polls opened at 6 o'clock this morning. That bill is currently waiting on the governor's desk for him to sign off on it. And if he does, then that could encourage big production companies like Netflix to make their way to the state of Missouri. So at about 11:30 last night, 7 inmates overpowered 2 jailers. And of those inmates, 3 of them were recaptured, but 4 did escape. You can see just how thick that branch is. And this is heavy, too. This is not a little stick. School districts all over the state are suffering from a sub-teacher shortage. I'm standing in a parking lot, and you can see that it is solid ice. Even if the roads are white, there is ice underneath that. It's a beautiful day outside. We've got lots and lots of people here. You know, the fish are kind of annoying me right now because I can see them, but none of them just really decide to latch on. If you are planning on coming out tonight for the Garth Brooks concert, then there is a number of things you need to know before you head out the door today. The one person who is still on the loose is Mario Toole, and the officers are working with the U.S. Marshal to make sure he is brought back into custody. And they do believe that he is trying to leave the state, but they are on the look for him right now. So let me tell you everything that has happened leading up to this moment. So at about 11:30 last night, 7 inmates attacked a couple of correctional officers inside the jail and then were able to escape. Of those 7 inmates, 3 of them were immediately brought back into custody within 15 minutes, but 4 of them have been on the loose overnight. Now, the police have been looking for them, as well as the Highway Patrol and, again, the U.S. Marshal. They were able to capture 2 of those inmates over by the Aquatic Center, and then 1 of them turned themselves in. Now, I spoke with the sheriff extensively on this topic all morning long, and he says one of the things that would help prevent something like this from happening is a more secure facility.
Yes, our facility is a very old facility. Luckily, we got a new sheriff's department that they are in the process of building, but it won't be done until July of 2024, which is another year away. A whole lot of stuff can happen within that year, so we're going to have to sit down and figure out what we're going to do from here until we can get the new one built.
All right, now the sheriff did say that those 2 correctional officers did everything they were supposed to do and did everything according to policy. Unfortunately, this is what had occurred due to partially being understaffed. Now, again, Mario Toole is still out and on the run. If you see, suspect, or hear anything or know anything, do not approach him. He is considered to be armed and dangerous. You need to call 911 immediately. Live in Cassville, I'm Kaitlyn Schumacher. Now, the country is facing a maternity care crisis, and now that crisis is hitting a little bit closer to home. So take a look at this map right here. This shows the areas where there are high levels of maternity care, but it also shows places that are maternity care deserts or areas that don't have any access to maternal care. Now, when the Cox-Monett Hospital closes its labor and delivery doors, Berry County will become one of those deserts. Now, several moms voiced their disappointment and concerns, and I sat down with a few of them to hear what they had to say.
It just sucks. It really does.
It's devastating.
Like, I was shocked.
Many new and expecting moms were caught off guard when they saw the announcement that the Monett Labor and Delivery Unit would no longer be serving patients this summer. Taylor Haney is expecting her 3rd baby in August and will now have to drive 45 minutes to Springfield for her weekly appointments and delivery.
It's going to be pretty difficult. I work a full-time job, and I'm also a mom. My fiance works, so we share one vehicle, so it's going to be hard to schedule appointments, go 45 minutes to an hour, sit there for an hour, schedule around work and everything else.
An inconvenience many women in rural communities face. According to a study by the March of Dimes, 54 Missouri counties have no access to maternal care or birthing centers. Expecting moms have to travel to the nearest hospital, and that can be scary.
I was in active labor for 20 minutes. So, I mean, if I had to go to Springfield, I don't know if I would have made it.
Jade Morphin had her daughter in December. The distance wasn't the only challenge her and her husband had to face.
There was this big snowstorm, I'm sure you remember, and it was bad.
Bethany Fisk says that she felt safer having care closer to home.
Because this is my first baby, I didn't know what I was doing. It was nice to be able, like, if I had to go in, it's a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive.
We reached out to Cox for an interview, and they issued a statement that says, Cox-Monett has made every effort to avoid the maternity care crisis. With a national shortage of physicians, it has become even more difficult to recruit obstetricians and family practice physicians to rural areas. Now, Mercy does have a hospital in Aurora with a labor and delivery unit, but it is out of network for some insurances. And some of the expecting moms that I talked to said that they just prefer to use Cox. So you can take a look at Cox and Mercy statements that were issued to us at KY3.com and the KY3 News app. Yes, Staff Sergeant Moses Tate was an airman in the U.S. Army. After his plane crashed in Romania, he would become a POW MIA until his remains would be identified on July 12, 2022.
We've heard about Uncle Moses for my whole lifetime, and we've never dreamed that he would come home.
In the summer of 1943, Staff Sergeant Moses F. Tate was assigned to Operation Tidal Wave. He and a fleet of B-24 airplanes would bomb the German oil refineries in an attempt to shorten the fuel supply and bring an end to the war. The low-level mission would require the planes to fly at just 200 to 300 feet above target. Because the enemy anticipated the attack, 310 airmen were killed. Sergeant Tate was one of the 80 men who would be unidentified. Until now. Dr. Megan Ingolstad is a forensic anthropologist for the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency and project lead for identifying all the remains from Operation Tidal Wave.
I think it's the best part of this job. It's the most satisfying, rewarding part, being able to put a name on a person who has been unaccounted for, sometimes for something like 70 years, and return them to their family. And that's the best part.
DPAA is working to identify the remains of the 80 men who did not return home. Once a soldier is identified, workers place a rose seal next to the picture to indicate his remains are accounted for. So far, 37 remains have been identified and returned home to their families. In 2017, the DPAA began exhuming unknowns believed to be associated with Operation Tidal Wave losses. These remains were sent to the Air Force Base in Nebraska for identification. Sergeant Tate's sister never gave up hope that one day he would be brought home and began recruiting family members to volunteer DNA to see if any of the unknown remains could be a match. She would not be alive to see it, but on July 12, 2022, the DPAA identified the remains and Sergeant Tate would return home.
Wish Mom was there. That's all she talked about, Uncle Moses. And it was nice.
Geneva Janowski is the niece of Moses Tate. She received the call letting her know that her uncle was found and began working with the Army to have his remains brought to Springfield for a military funeral. Geneva was born 5 years after her uncle's death, but she says her family often spoke of Uncle Moses.
The only memories any of us have is what our parents were telling us, and they're all gone. All of his brothers and sisters are gone.
Staff Sergeant Tate was a tailman for a B-24 bomber. Of the 10 crewmen, only 3 survived. Tate is the first of his crew to be identified. The DPAA currently has more than 7,000 sets of remains in need of identification.
If you're missing family, get in touch with the Army and they will start checking DNA and bring them home.
Now, services for Sergeant Tate will take place tomorrow morning. There's going to be a funeral at Faith Lutheran Church in Branson at 10 o'clock, and then a graveside interment here at the Missouri Veterans Cemetery at noon. Live in Springfield, I'm Kaitlyn Schumacher. You know, a couple of weeks ago when I got an email from animation professor Stephen Carpenter, he told me a little bit about a project that his senior class was working on, and when I heard this story, I knew I had to share it with you all. Take a look. When you walk through the doors of Shoemaker Communications Center, you can find a group of animation students bringing magic to life. Every year, the senior animators take on a client to collaborate on their final project before graduation.
And I just had an idea that this semester, let's bring in a really tough client. Let's bring in a 10-year-old.
That 10-year-old is Jake Douglas. But here's the deal. When Jake was only 2 years old, he was diagnosed with retinoblastoma, a rare cancer of the eye. Because of the cancer, Jake now has a prosthetic in his left eye and needs strong correction in his right eye. Jake has been working with the college students via Zoom on a story and characters to portray his vision.
I created like a rough draft for the characters, and then they completed it, and they made multiple designs, and I got to choose from them.
Like, Jake's ideas were just really fun in concept, but our amazing animators and storyboard artist Matt fleshed them out even more and made them even more fun.
Despite the many challenges he has faced, his determination and creative spirit have inspired those around him.
It's been amazing. I mean, you don't get every day to work on a film this important for someone.
From storyboards to 3D modeling, the animation department is paying close attention to every detail.
Jake gets a lot of attention for what happened to him in his past. And so anything that helps him focus on what he's good at, what he's passionate about, what he wants to do with his life, for any time investment in his future and focusing on his future so that he doesn't have to spend as much time thinking about his past, that's for me as a mom what I want him focusing on.
As for Jake, well, he has his sights set on where he wants to work one day.
Disney, because it's fallen behind.
So Jake is currently cancer-free, and his film is titled The One. It will be premiering at the Moxie Cinema on May 12th. Live in Springfield, I'm Kaitlyn Schumacher.